All right, this video is intended to give you some practical tips on how to hit it out of the ballpark this time with this sketchbook. And remember, we're doing freehand drawing. Our subject matter is going to be very simple. We're just drawing boxes, and so you've got to get a box somewhere. That shouldn't be too hard to do. The bigger the better. You know, something about this size, probably no bigger than that would be ideal, but if that's all you can come up with, that's good too. They both work. One thing I want to make clear from the outset, and that is that we are only focusing on the essential physical features of these boxes and not any of the details, right? So you're not going to pay any attention to tape, to graphics, color, value. We're not going to shade these at all. So none of the kind of superficial, kind of surfacey things, none of that. And in fact, when you draw this, you're going to idealize it to some extent because you're not going to draw a dent right here. You're just going to get the line as it essentially is. And you'll see in the examples that that none of these quirky things about an individual box appear. It's, we would say, idealized. And so when I look at this box, I'm going to I'm going to be very interested in the angles of this box. Of course, the verticals are verticals. They're very easy, but you do have to get them in the right place. And so the angles and the proportions are basically what I'm going to face this week as a challenge. And don't dismiss boxes as boring. They're really quite interesting. And if you can make a good drawing of a box, it will have this magical quality that where it seems to be, you know, have weight and be sitting on a flat surface. We're going to use the box, the photo of the box, and reference that. So be thinking of that, and I'll draw on the board how I think you should approach this. So you want to go from the easy to the hard, right? The easiest angles in a box are the verticals, and so I think it makes sense just to start with the vertical. And of course, you're going to use motor strokes and draw through. So you're going to draw that that forward-facing corner, the corner that's closest to you, it's easiest to reference and to kind of go back and forth to. And so that's it. It doesn't start and stop. But now I'm going to come across with a horizontal, and this represents the top of that corner. And now I'm faced with a decision. Now remember, this is a decision, not an observation, because you get to decide how big you're going to make this drawing of a box. That's up to you. It can be this big, this big, this big. You decide, but once you decide that, you've locked yourself in to a proportional scale, and you have to stick with that. So I'm going to say that my box is going to go from there to there. Not an observation, that's a decision, not an observation. And now I am going to want to make some sidings and make some comparisons. And so I am going to, I think the first thing I'm going to do is make some sidings. And so I'm going to hold my straight edge up, and I'm going to assess the nature of those angles and get them as exactly as I can. And so when I have observed, you see first, then draw, observe, and then record. So I'm going to put those in like this. And these angles aren't exactly the same. This one's a little bit steeper. And so far so good. But now it's time to make a comparison. And remember that making a comparison has one aim, and that is to get a proportion correct or accurate. And this is how we're going to proceed. If this is the box I'm looking at, I'm going to lock my elbow and hold my straight edge up against this corner edge and move my thumb out to where the other edge of the box is, and then without unlocking my elbow, I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to try to figure out how many of those it takes to fit along that line. And it looks like it's about 1 3/4. So that makes it kind of easy. I'll show you why, because now on my paper, this is now on the paper, that's 1 and that's 2. And what we were saying is that this edge was 1 3/4, so about right here. This is much better than eyeballing or guessing, believe it or not, even though there is a little bit of, wiggle room here. Now I'm going to do the same for over here, and it's going to be, a little bit more. So I'm not going to do it in front of you. We're just saying you do it, and this is what you arrive at. And so now you've got this box that's looking like it's in pretty good proportion. I've left the top until last because, as it turns out, this is always the hardest part. This is the part where the most mistakes are made. And the reason, I believe, is because it's so compressed. We think of the box as having this broad, flat top, but when we look at it, it's a little bit below our eye level, and it's all compressed. We call that foreshortened. I think you've come across that term in some of the videos. Foreshortened means that it looks smaller than it really is. And so we tend to make mistakes there. Now, before I go on, I want to just emphasize that at this point, you have two things that you can rely on. You have your knowledge of linear perspective, and you have your observational skills, which you're developing. And according to linear perspective, this line has a certain relationship to this line. And maybe you can kind of be thinking in your mind what that is. Remember, it's not parallel. We don't come up with a parallel here. Why? Because this edge and this edge are the same height, and this is farther away, so it's got to be smaller. So these lines are going to go back to a vanishing point. In fact, what we're doing is we're making a 2-point perspective drawing, just that the vanishing point is over there somewhere in the air, and over here somewhere in the air, so we don't have the ability to reach back to those directly. So we have to make a sighting, and we have to rely upon our knowledge of linear perspective. So we make our sighting, and we find out that this angle is like this. There it is. And it's very close to parallel, but not quite. The same with this one. We make a sighting, we understand it, then we put it in, and it goes like this. And now we have to do the last part, these other two angles, and then we'll have it. Hopefully it'll be accurate. So we're going to make sightings. One thing that you can do, I think this is super, super valuable under these circumstances. You can see this corner, right? The corner is somewhere over here. And so you can hold your straight edge up and see where it falls in relation to this line right here, or maybe, it's probably closer to this line. And so you can kind of put in, that's kind of where it is. And then you can make your sightings and come out like this and like this. And in this case, it hits there. I might just adjust it so that it's, so that it hits there, so it's more accurate. And when you've adjusted things, and you're drawing lightly, so you can adjust them without, worrying too much about ruining your drawing. Then you can come in and just darken a little bit for emphasis. You don't want to do too much darkening. If you do too much, then everything is treated the same and nothing is emphasized. So that's the kind of approach I want you to take with this drawing. If you have questions, please contact me. You can email me. It's better not to message me through Canvas because those those don't come through immediately, so I would say email or text, and if it's urgent, please text me. So I wish you luck with these drawings. This is going to be a challenge, but I think you can succeed with these simple objects, and I think you'll find it very satisfying. So good luck with that.